Thank you very much. It's such an honor for us to be here with you. I can't imagine any more exciting place to be than to be here in this auditorium this weekend with you. You know, are you all excited yet? We had an opportunity to listen to Ron Ball, and with a talk like that, it's so awesome and so packed with truth that you just want to keep listening and listening. And I don't know what he left out, but we ought to hear what he left out, right? It's one of those things. You know, several years ago I heard a story, and I love to tell it at least for people that I admire. And it's a story about Dr. Billy Graham, and years ago when he was just a young evangelist, the story goes that he was in Virginia, and he was in a small town. He was preaching in a small church, and he happened to be walking around town looking for the post office. And as Dr. Graham was looking around, he couldn't find the post office, and he saw a young fella, and he said, "Son, come here a minute." And the boy came over, and Dr. Graham was a fairly big fella, and so he came over and he looked up at Dr. Graham, and Dr. Graham said, "Son, could you tell me how to get to the post office?" And the little boy said, "Well, yes, sir. You just go down here 2 blocks and take a left, and it's right there on the right." And Dr. Graham said, "Thank you very much, son. I appreciate that." He said he started to walk away. He took a few steps. He caught himself. He turned back around and said, "Son, come back here a minute." The little boy came back, and again, looking up this great giant of a man, and he said, "Yes, sir." And Dr. Graham said, "Son, I'll tell you what. So you come down to the First Baptist Church tonight, and I'll tell you how to get to heaven." And the little boy looked up at him and said, "No, thank you. You don't even know how to get to the post office." But you know, being here in this auditorium with great leaders like Fred and Linda, we obviously know they know how to get to the post office, don't we? They know how to get you to Diamond, and I'm not quite sure that we're going to add anything to helping you do that, unless you can perhaps grasp some inspiration from something we say that spurs you on a little bit. But obviously they're great leaders and people that we respect. Years ago, in one of my first terms on the board of directors, Fred was on the board, and we were discussing something, and suddenly Fred began to get a little antsy and perhaps didn't like what he was hearing, and suddenly Fred rose to his feet, and he gave one of those "give me liberty or give me death" speeches, one that you've never heard. Let me tell you, I sat there in awe as Fred began to espouse his beliefs and his principles. And all of us kind of got quiet because we knew Fred was kind of concentrating, I guess we'd say. That Fred was on target, and he helped us to focus and get our minds in the right direction with that speech. We could call it the Bill of Rights, we could call it defending the Constitution, but Fred was on target. And I thought to myself, if I ever go into a fight, there's certain people I'd want to be by my side in a fight. And I think I'd want Fred in front. Because there would be nobody ever get to me. I'll tell you, the guy, he is a principled person. And you're very fortunate to have leaders with so much depth, so many principles, so much character that you can count on and believe in them. And you know exactly how they'll react. The thing about a person with character is that you know how they're going to react in every situation. They're not going to do it wrong. They're going to be fair. They're going to be honest. They're going to have integrity. And that's the kind of people that you want to surround yourself with. And you know what? I would imagine that's the kind of people that you'd like your children to grow up around. Because there's not many places today that children can look to and see people of principle. There's not many places you can go and even find people with some secure belief. Their beliefs just waver in the wind sometimes. And so, as you go out and build your business, be proud of the organization you're in. Be proud of your leaders. Because Fred and Linda have trained and brought and nurtured a group of people together like yourselves who are all moving forward to build a better America, a better world, simply because of what you do. Have you ever thought about the awesomeness of what you do? Have you ever thought about how proud you should be of what you accomplish? I know years ago when we had our first dream night, a little small group of a couple hundred people in Abingdon, Virginia. My dad, he had kind of gone from the, I don't want you in that thing, you better never get out of the Air Force, to an acceptance. But then he came to a dream night. There weren't many people there, but when that meeting was over, my dad's life was changed. Because he suddenly saw that there was something we were doing that was greater and more important than being a sergeant in the military. He saw that there was a purpose to our lives. And I want you to grasp the totality of what you have in your hands before you leave here this weekend. Get it down inside yourself that you are doing what's right and that you're moving forward with the most important thing in your life, doing the most important thing I believe you could do, and that is to build a better community, to build a better family, build a better community, build a better state, and build a better country. And we got to all get together to do that. But the thing is, do we really believe we can? That if you want to be successful, you've got to believe. And maybe if you're not moving as rapidly towards the success in your business as you'd like to be moving, maybe it's just because down inside yourself you might have a little doubt that somebody has planted some negative remark, which I can't imagine a negative remark ever having a chance to sprout around Fred because he hates negative. But, you know, some little doubt can creep in that keeps you from being your very best. You see, just believing and saying, I believe, is a beginning. But real belief has to be internalized, and then it comes outward in what would you say, our desire to be better, our desire to form better habits, our commitment, and our determination and our dedication to get the job done. When you look at Toby and I on the stage today, and then I look back at our lives, and I was sitting in wonder all the time. I mean, almost every week I look back and I say, how did we ever do this? We grew up in a poverty area of Virginia, down in the coal fields in a mountain area. We never really saw much. What's a dream? A coal mine? What's a dream? A shack with a new Oldsmobile sitting out front. You know? Living in a coal camp and strikes and not very much money and poverty. But we were taught certain things. I know Toby was taught the very same things I was taught. Hard work, commitment and dedication, determination. We had chores. We didn't call them chores. That was a big word. It was work. We were expected to split kindling. Toby was the oldest of the girls. She had to chop the wood. We call it, split the kindling or chop the wood. You did it every day. You carried the coal. You milked the cows and you churned the butter. And you hoed the corn and you raised the tobacco and you canned and you worked and you worked and you worked. And all I remember for 17 years from the time I could do anything at all was work, 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 work. So we knew what hard work was all about. Now in the 6th grade, I happened to have to change schools and went over to what we call the tar paper shacks. A lot of people today say, well, if you live in poverty, it's bound to affect you somehow. I don't know. People can blame anything they want to. We happened to go to tar paper shacks to school. The school had burned down. They just put up some wood buildings and put tar paper on the outside of them and said, that's a schoolroom. Well, I went to that school, and I was one of those guys that nobody wanted to play with. I had ringworm. I don't know if any of you remember when ringworm used to run around. I don't see anybody with it anymore. I don't know why we all got it at the same time, but me and my best buddy, Bird Brain, he and I had to change schools, so we go to this new school, and we walk in with our white hats, and they quarantine us and put us in the back corner of the classroom so nobody would be around us so they wouldn't get ringworm too. And every week we had to go through the embarrassment of going over to the little cafeteria they had set up, and we'd take our hats off, and they'd run an ultraviolet light over our heads and say, well, you still got ringworm, and you got to keep using this white cream on your head, and we'd wear our little white hats some more. And for several months, we went through that. Well, the first week I was there, I saw Toby. This is a feisty, pretty little girl, good-looking legs. I mean, she was something else. And I thought, I'm going to marry her. You see, I understood something. My dad we were on a farm, small farm. My dad always told me, he said, son, when you get married, you marry a healthy woman. You know, and he compared it to checking out cows. You know, he knew how to relate things. Like, you know, you got a healthy cow, you got a sick cow. You keep the healthy ones, get rid of the sick ones, you know. And he put things in those terms. He said, if you ever pick a wife, you make sure you pick a healthy one. Check her teeth, you know, check her legs. She's all right. So I remember seeing Toby the first week of school. I went home and told my dad, I have found the girl I'm going to marry. Now, I was a shy, bashful kid that nobody wanted to play with. And I had in my mind at that time that I would marry her. Now, my dad said, who is she? Now, I said, well, it's Toby Kaiser. He said, where does she live? I said, she lives over around Carterton, Virginia. He said, that must be Bob Kaiser's daughter, son. That's a good family. See, Dad knew breeding, too. It's like, I mean, you have to know my dad. I mean, he had certain things. Didn't have much education, but he understood how to farm. And so he knew that if you had a certain last name, as far as my dad was concerned, you were either good or bad. He didn't have to know you. You just name the name. That's breeding. You know, and some names will just send him right off. But the Kaiser name was an okay name. So I said, okay, I'll marry her. And so I decided I was going to marry her. And then I had this secret goal in life that one day I would marry Toby. And so we went along, got into high school. You know, she never knew that at all. Sometime, I think, in our junior year of high school, we may have gone out on, we went on one date, I think. And then I called her back, and she certainly didn't want to go out with me again. And so that sunk that ship. The next year, our senior year, she was the captain of the girls' basketball team. I was captain of the boys' team. And, you know, we were doing the thing of playing basketball. Came down to the end of the season, we were playing the arch rival, the county seat, the city boys. You know, if you've ever lived in the country, you always want to beat the city kids. And so we were going to really whip up on this team. We go up to Lebanon, Virginia, and we're playing the game. We get down to the end of the game. There's about 5-6 seconds left in the game. One of our guys on the team ties the ball up. There's a jump ball called. Our coach calls timeout. The other team is 1 point ahead of us. And so the coach says, okay, here's what we're going to do. He said, we've got a game plan. We knew that our guy was going to get the tip because he was a tall guy. We knew that the tip would be okay. So the coach said, okay, you tip the ball to Ron. And Ron, all you got to do is turn, take 2 dribbles, drive in, you make 2 points, we're going to win this game. We came out, we lined up. Sure enough, the ball came right to me. No problem. I turned, 2 dribbles, no opposition, a nice, clean 2 points, fantastic, hit the ground. Boy, I was excited. The crowd is roaring with excitement. But I look around, and my team was a bit dismayed because I just made 2 points for the other team. Now, have you ever wanted to really die? I mean, have you ever been so embarrassed that you'd just like to leave and never be found again? Well, you be the captain of the ball team, you be the second highest scorer in the state, and you just lost it. We got on the school bus, I was so hurt, I was so disappointed in myself, and you know what happened? Toby stayed on the bus when we got to the restaurant, and she said, it's okay. It ain't okay. Ron, it's all right. This is not the only game in the world. And Toby began to try to cheer me up. Well, I took her home that night, and she lived way out in the country, and we had to park at the road, and then I had to walk across a swamp and up a mountain, and finally, then up these steps, you know, steps 10, 15 feet off the ground. And I walk up there, and I turn to go, and she grabs me and kisses me. Now, I don't know about y'all, but some woman grabs you and kisses you, you wonder what in the world has happened. I had very few kisses in my life, and I thought, I like this. I think I'll come back. And so the next week I came back, and then the next week we went out on a date, and I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And so from that point on, we started planning our lives. Now, a lot of people think, well, you're crazy. No, I've been planning it since the 6th grade, 5 years. I knew I was going to marry her. And she accepted, so it was no big problem for that. So we graduated from high school. I went in the Air Force, and I started getting an education right away. Toby and I took a look at the plan. We've been in the Air Force 11 and a half years. We were sick and tired of low pay. We're struggling every month. I can go back and show you our checkbook from 1968, which I still have, and it shows my payday $250 on the 15th of January, 1968. 3 days later, I had $3.68 left. At the end of the month, 28th of the month, we go to the convenience store, write a check for $1 and something, we had $1 and something left. The next month, we got a paycheck, 58 cents left in the checkbook, 2 or 3 days before payday. No bread, no milk. We're tearing the bottoms off the furniture, shaking the furniture every month, going through all of our pockets, trying to find a nickel or a penny there and there, going through the car, running our hands down, trying to find a penny here that fell out. What a way to live. Now, we were junior executives of the world's largest airline. You know, isn't it interesting how we get so status conscious? How so, man, wow, look who I am. And we're so broke, we can't even afford to buy food for our family. And yet my sponsor, my wonderful sponsor, was saying, you ought to get in this Amway thing. And I'm laughing at him. Of all the crazy things, for 18 months, I'm laughing at him while I'm struggling because I think he's nuts. Then I walk into his office one day as he's opening an envelope, and instead of shaking my hand, he hands me a piece of paper, and it's a check from Amway. I should have called on a few weeks before when he bought a brand new Chevrolet station wagon and didn't re-enlist that something was going on. He hands me this check for over $2,000. I swallowed my pride and I said, when's your next meeting? He said, Friday night. Well, I knew that because we all knew it was every Friday night. Everybody that was there working, we had already been approached and we knew the scheme. You know, it was every Friday night you go to a meeting, you pay $20.23 and you get you one of them boxes and you go home and quit. Well, that's what all the other recruiters did. 3 of them got in. One day, we could always spot the Amway guys, you know. What a bunch of turkeys. You know, they get an Amway, the next thing you know, they're walking fast. And they're smiling. We're excited. Y'all get in this thing with me, boy. And as soon as somebody get in, we'd spot them. I remember 3, my boss and 2 recruiters walked into my office. As soon as I walked through the door, I looked up, Johnny looked up, my office partner, we looked over at them and started laughing. We knew they'd been sucked into this deal. We laughed, we told them, I said, you guys are absolutely out of your minds, stupid. They quit, turned their kits in. Then I took Johnny with me to the first meeting. Because, see, I procrastinated. After I told him I'd come, I thought, I'm not going to get into that. Oh, gosh, I don't want to do that. I got a career. I'm going to be a general. So Johnny goes with me because I'm kind of a pushover. Give you an example. In the 1st of June of 1968, we bought a brand new Electrolux vacuum cleaner. The last of June of 1968, Kirby guy came by and we bought a Kirby and traded the new Electrolux in on it. I ended up paying for both of them. I'm a pushover. So I took Johnny along to keep me from getting in. We'll go over to the house, 15 minutes into the presentation, I start getting excited. That's me, you know, oh boy, this looks good. Wow, that's incredible. I jumped up to the meeting, I said, how soon can I get started? My sponsor said, you can get started tonight. I said, terrific. Johnny jumps up, instead of saying, let's get out of here, he jumps up and says, I want to do it too. So here I am. It's all Johnny's fault. Johnny quit the 3rd month. He's like some of the other quitters, you know, he gave up. The interesting thing is that Johnny was a sharper recruiter than me. He was a sharper guy than me. He was a friendly fellow. I was not a friendly guy. Johnny was outgoing. He was in a hometown recruiter as well. He knew everybody. But Johnny came into work. He hit 15% in March, came into work in April, and he said, I quit. I said, Johnny, my God, your group's growing. You're going to be our first direct, Johnny. You can't quit. Johnny, this is the greatest thing in the world. He said, I quit. I said, Johnny, why are you quitting? My wife won't help me. I'm not going to work hard and make money and let her spend it. I quit. It's a fact. That's a quote. Now, Johnny still works hard and his wife still spends his money. Just not as much as she could be, but she still spends his money. I suspect that Johnny's wife might have helped him if he'd have kept going. But what if she had? What if Johnny was here today? What if Johnny was a diamond or executive diamond or double today? What would be the difference in that and being a clerk in a convenience store with an Air Force retirement check? Johnny quit. I didn't know how to handle it at that time. Johnny just quit. We kept going. We wouldn't give up. You see, we had learned things on the farm like you don't quit. When you go out to milk the cow, you milk her till she's dry. You don't just milk her halfway. And when you carry the coal in, you carry all the buckets in. You don't just carry half of them in. And when you hoe the corn, you hoe it all. You know, my dad taught me that a long time ago. You get the corn patch hoed, then you can go fishing.